The sixth maxim: to be guided in all things by the Spirit of wisdom.
It's also noticeable in the maxims that the three maxims, 4, 5, 6, you could sort of associate in a way with the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. The Father is providence, the Creator, in whose bosom, so to speak, we need to live. The Son is the one who suffered and died for us, and therefore we have to somehow, in other words, go through that sort of same passion experience and change in dealing with sin particularly and with evil. And the last maxim is to do with the Holy Spirit, the Spirit within us, the Spirit that transforms our lives. And really what Rosmini does here is he gives us sort of practical ways in which we can apply this to our lives. So he's really talking about grace. Grace is a feeling for God. This is a phrase that Rosmini used. Grace is a feeling for God. When we are graced, we feel for God because God is affecting us at the essence of the innermost part of our being. And it's trying to sort of conform, I suppose, the details of our life to a sense of being guided by the Holy Spirit, to live within, in the company of the Holy Spirit. The Spirit is there always within us, prompting us and loving us and inspiring us. And so he looks at what sort of life we have, and he talks about a life of regularity, of balance, where we choose to always make time in our life for prayer and for reading, not to be constantly active, to prefer sometimes, if you like, a more steady and gentle sort of life rather than a life of frenetic activity. Nevertheless, he notes that this is unrealistic if we think that it's always going to be like that. And this is a direct quote from Rosmini. It can happen that the Christian who for his part would prefer a quiet life which is far removed from the world's worries, a life which is devoted to prayer and study and work and rest and other basic needs. But he's drawn out of this sanctuary, which he's devoted to not through laziness but through humility, and he is led into activity. He may be plunged into a sea of troubles and cares, of labours great and small, noble and abject. All this for the good of his neighbour, according to the priority which God himself has established. So, to be realistic, there are going to be times in life when you're very, very busy. And you think of the busy mother, who's got a baby who's constantly demanding. She has no time for herself. She is totally giving. It's not the way of life she would necessarily have chosen for herself. And it's a time, it's a special time, and she'll look back on it eventually and think, well, thank God I haven't got any more children to worry about. But she will also see it as a very golden time because it's a time of establishing a beautiful human relationship. And I think also of the health services during this COVID. I mean, some of them have been stretched to the breaking point, and you hear stories of doctors and nurses saying, we just can't go on like this. We can't be in emergency day after day, week after week. We're going to collapse. And in an epidemic like this is what unfortunately happens. So sometimes they've had to call people, ask doctors who are retired to come back, and nurses who are retired to come back and help, so that they can get the services right. And it's an emergency. You in an emergency, you down tools and look after what's happened. You have to, and that's your job. But it's very trying and very demanding. I have a friend who's had a life in the police, but he told me when he first went to Ashburton, where he was appointed for many years actually, when he first went there, the first week he had to attend 2 or 3 serious car accidents with people dead on the road. You know, a young police officer having to deal with dead people, the trauma of death, you know, the mess and all that sort of thing, and then to have to go and perhaps tell the parent, the wife that the husband's dead. You know, that, so it's you realise what a terrible time sometimes the police have. And I remember him describing that to me, and I thought, my God, you know, thank God. Oh, he thanked God it didn't happen every day, but it happened that was his first experience of this new posting, and he got it all at once. So these things happen in life, but it's not what we choose. We choose for preference, and Rosmini is, I suppose he's a little bit looking at his own life here. He likes to talk about a period, a time of retirement and reading and praying and not being subject to this sort of extremely demanding living. Yes, I'm not going to say an awful lot about this one because it's sort of a lot of bits and pieces, but I did notice that in a way, you see, you get the sort of the positive part of the Maxim, which says, you know, live in tune with the Spirit of God within you. But there's also a series of negatives which are sort of extracted from my meditations on Rosmini. And here they are. Don't rush. Don't be always seeking distraction. Don't be always looking for greener pastures. Don't impose yourself on other people without being asked. Don't waste your time and your talents. Don't be so busy that you neglect entirely your prayer and your reading. Don't wear yourself out with activity, and don't be ambitious for success. And people who have read that have often said, gosh, those are good guides really for the practicalities of life, a series of don'ts like that. So I suppose in a way we come back to Rosmini's ideal of the religious life, which is a balance between the active life and the contemplative life. Rosmini says the rest state for his religious should be the contemplative life. You live a life which is peaceful, which is prayerful, which is caring, which is not frenetic, not busy. But you know that you will sometimes be drawn out of it into a very active life, and you do that willingly because it's God's will, but when the time comes you happily withdraw. And for him, that is really what he means by living in harmony with the Holy Spirit. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.